Dan Rothenberg and Joe Klosik, two guys trying to figure it out. Not the right wing, not the brosphere. Left of center with humor and empathy. We are getting comments.
We're getting comments.
We are getting comments. Do you want to hear?
Let's open it up. Let's open it up. You've been better about managing our social media. So
I've just been, we've been posting on YouTube, right? That's primarily where we've been. And here's what some of the people are saying.
We got
quote.
Yeah.
What would these two ladies know about being a man?
Okay, so this was in reference to our last couple of episodes. We've been trying to explore manhood left of center. What is challenging the ideas of
masculinity. I tried listening, but can't relate to these leftists. I tried. Within the first 2-3 mins, they showed how out of touch they are. R.I.P. gig. Not even sure what language that was written in.
Yeah, so I get the sense these are random general statements of people that just want to kind of troll and
they're trolls.
Throw a little negativity.
But let me give you my favorite one.
Yeah, all right.
This is my favorite one because I feel like the guy who wrote this felt very proud of himself. Mm-hmm. And on the first pass, I will say it is the smartest sounding, dumbest thing I may have ever read.
All right, let's hear
it. Daniel DeWalt, 3624. Quote, "This is what mothers say to their sons and what women say to men as they instantly throw them into the friend zone forever. Never, never take advice on fishing from the fish." Unquote.
You lost me. You lost me.
Well, I think what he's saying is we are trying to appreciate women and we're trying to respect the fact that they are human beings with their own thoughts, needs, desires, and emotion, and getting in touch with our own and being empathetic might help us in relating to women. Mm-hmm. But he's comparing them to fish, and then he's saying, why would you listen to women to understand women?
Right. Okay. First of all, what's his name? .301-872.
Daniel DeWalt 3624.
Okay, first of all, Daniel DeWalt, thank you for listening, because that's at least a comment that is an actual comment. It sounds like he's being critical, and it doesn't sound like our target audience, but at least that is a thought-provoking thing to say. In other words, men and women are in opposition, and we don't want to being successful with women is more about manipulating than listening. I mean, is that what you're getting from that comment?
That's what I mean. I think he's very proud of himself saying never take advice on fishing from fish. But what he's really saying is I'm a lonely old man and I don't know why women don't talk to me, and it couldn't be because I'm creepy.
Yeah.
That's what I think he's saying without realizing he's saying it. This idea, anytime you see a grown man refer to the friend zone, I just picture somebody who probably hasn't had a meaningful conversation with anybody in 30 years and is so out of touch with their own emotions that the idea that fish might have an opinion on how you approach them, I mean, that's just a stunning metaphor because women are the fish in this metaphor.
Yeah.
And he's saying, like, if I want to pick up women,
why would I listen to women?
Why would I listen to women? Which is the most insane backward logic. But, let me also I want to do an impression of his picture, which he at least seems to have taken an actual picture of himself for his YouTube. So here's my impression of his picture. That's it.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. I don't need to see the picture.
Anyway,
that's
we would like more nice comments.
Yeah, how about a few nice? But at the same time, I realize you kind of got to earn that through perseverance, and we have to stick through this stuff. But at least
we're getting information out there. We're getting results.
At least that smart,
we're getting comments.
Dumb comment was indicated that he listened.
He listened. Yeah.
And took the time to give kind of an opinion.
It's an opinion. It's insane.
It's insane, but it's a reaction to what we said as opposed to just calling us leftists.
Yeah, well, there was another one. We were also called a socialist. That's
socialist. I saw that one.
We seem to have riled up the MAGA base, which is not shocking because we're men talking about what it means to be a man, and of course they know what it means to be a man. All right, you put on a red hat, you get a beer, you put on some cutoffs, and you smack abroad, and that's pretty much what it is to be a man.
And what we're challenging is, again, this. On the one hand, yes, I acknowledge that there are some things about manhood that I identify with. I like sports. When I was in high school, I had trouble talking to girls. In my mind, felt like they had a lot of power because it just seemed like I needed to approach them, and it was frustrating. And I share those experiences with my son because he's going through some of them too. Those are man experiences. I do also believe, Joe, that we can get stuck in the friend zone.
Sure, it can happen.
Those ideas, that is true. Sometimes you got to kind of go for it. Sometimes you have your moments. Did you ever see Sideways?
Probably, but fill me back in.
Okay, there's a moment in Sideways. It's about.
Oh wait, yeah. He
Paul
goes
Giamatti
on the wine tasting trip. Yes. Great movie. Great
movie.
Weird
it's about
flick.
Friendship. So you remember that moment where Miles, the lead character, is he's got his he's with the love interest Maya. Yeah, Maya, who is interested in him, and they have a moment where they're talking about wine metaphorically and how that's a metaphor for what they're looking for, and she puts her hand on his hand, and he just lets the moment pass. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he was afraid.
Blows it. Now that is
blows it.
That is a bro. That is a man moment of needing to step up and needing to transcend that friend. And then he goes. It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite scenes in any movie. I could just relate. He goes into the bathroom and he looks in the mirror. He's like, "You're a fucking loser." It's just so beautifully.
But that's also the kind of guy, who goes online and then finds a community of other men who feel like, well, the reason I'm not in a relationship, the reason I'm not getting sex
is that women suck.
Yes. Right? And that is a dangerous, and I feel like if you start referring to women as fish in any,
and that's, the fundamental lack of insight, inability to self-reflect. And again, that's what we're trying to add to the bro equation. Right back to where we started, the ability to reflect, the ability to up your emotional IQ.
There you go.
And lean into uncomfortable feelings the same way you lean into weightlifting.
Emotional IQ? Yeah. That means I've got immigrant questions. Right. That's what that means.
Good.
I got questions about immigrants. I got a QI. Right.
So instead of blaming women and blaming immigrants...
How about some self-reflection?
Yes. Self-reflection.
Yeah.
That does not necessarily. So, where I would disagree with our fish friend is that doesn't necessarily put you in the to be able to get in touch with your feelings, be aware of where you get scared. Is not going to put you in the friend zone. It's going to do the opposite, and that's the fundamental kind of disagreement.
Yeah. No, I would agree with all of that. It is frightening to see that people have that much time to put that kind of energy and effort into, oh, hey, I listened. I didn't like it. You know what? I'm going to say something mildly annoying or discouraging. I will also say, like, it's worth looking at them. I'm not a big grammar, spelling, punctuation guy, okay? Mm-hmm. I've struggled with that my whole life. But, man, make an effort, because lately it is virtually impossible to read some of these comments that I'm personally getting on my Facebook, that I'm getting in other social media. I mean, I don't know if they're typing because they're so angry, or if they are really living up to the...
stupidity.
Yeah, they're just
that stereotypes them.
It's a stereotype of illiteracy. Like, I literally cannot read what some of these people are writing, and it's stunning to me. If this is like an authentic, like someone really took, I'm really angry, I'm going to tell them how I feel. I don't know how you feel, because
exactly.
And the thing that strikes me as so ironic is these are the first people that are always like, you need to speak American. You need to use English. Dude, you can't use English.
Yeah, and it's not, okay, and that might sound a little snobby and elitist, but it's about getting specific.
It's communication. It's basic.
Communicate. What does that mean? You call us leftists or socialists. What does that mean?
I mean, they throw these terms around like they're bad. I don't think they know what they are. They've just been told that they're bad, right? But anyway, so that's our fan mail.
Okay,
Dan, that's our fan mail.
And so if anyone is enjoying what we're doing, let us know, because we need a little self-esteem.
And you know what? Frankly, if you don't like what we're doing, you're also free to chime in, but for God's sakes, run it through spell check.
Right.
You use punctuation.
Yeah. Have someone proofread it.
It a few times. Yeah. I think you overused dumbass here a couple of times, Clyde. Maybe we want to use a different word choice.
Right. That's getting a little redundant. So
redundant.
Lazy adjectives.
Yeah, just get the game up. That's all.
But again, thank you to Daniel, whatever.
Yeah.
I at least understand your argument.
I guess I can say...
and that's, again,
yeah.
When I picture... that's the attitude that I'm trying to kind of oppose. It makes me think about the Andrew Tates talking loud and talking about how the louder I talk, the more I can win the argument.
Right.
And women are here and men are here, and men are made to feel ashamed about what we really are, which is sort of players.
Right.
I just don't believe in that.
Me neither, but whatever. Clearly we touched a nerve, and I think that's a good thing.
Good.
Maybe in some little way that will cause some self-reflection.
Yeah.
But anyway, you recommended a movie for me to watch.
I'm really glad you recommended this movie. And here's what I want to do. I want this podcast, on the one hand, let's talk about this movie, and we'll do our best to we'll talk about it in a way where someone listening might give a shit.
Well, so tell us the movie.
Okay, the movie is I forgot the name of it. Mike Birbiglia. I recommended it to you.
Don't think twice.
What?
Don't think twice.
Don't think twice. So it is about
right? Yeah.
A LA-based
New York.
Okay. It's about a New York-based improv group, self-created improv group that as you and I have both been through this, you have a group of comedians working together, believing in each other, and gaining some notoriety and getting a fan base, and then a few of them go to SNL or a few of them get breaks, and then you have 4 or 5 left to figure out what happened and why wasn't it me, and did that person screw me over? Somehow they should have brought me with them. And it made me think about so many of our friends who are now successful, and my perspective on them, and the idea that showbiz is all luck, which I don't believe. That it leaves people like me and many in a situation of, how am I going to look at this? Am I going to get bitter and feel like I should have gotten that opportunity, or am I going to self-reflect? Again, it's sort of similar. Why don't girls like me? Why didn't I get on SNL? Why didn't I get on Letterman? Am I going to self-reflect about that, whether I like it or not? Even if it's not just about being funny, even if it's about things that go on off stage, do I have the guts to look at the whole picture, or what many young comedians do, kind of get pissed about it and get bitter about it? And what really jumped out at me is, put this new Keegan Michael Keys. What's his?
Yeah.
Keegan Michael Keys was the guy that made it. Is it Key or Keys?
Key.
Keegan Michael Key was the character that made it, and his friends put him in a difficult position, basically saying, pass on my writing samples. And without realizing, actually, in many ways, he's the one with the pressure on him. He's now got his shot.
Yeah.
So he's actually in a position to really fail. Because now he's on SNL. He's gotten the Just for Laughs festival. Now it's happened. This big thing we've all been working toward has happened. Now fucking what? You're just in the same place you've been.
I didn't know what to expect. So Christina and I watched it. She's like, hey, I've got some movie credits. Like, you want to watch it? I'm like, okay. And I got to be honest.
This is Don't Think Twice, Mike Birbiglia, independent movie.
Yeah,
I gained a lot of respect
2016.
for him. Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating to hear you say that. I don't like him. And I will
so now
admit...
now remember when I talked about the bitter? You can go bitter. This is now we have the other side.
But this isn't the bitter. I'm just being 100%.
Okay.
I'm just being 100% open
I'm kidding.
about it.
Go ahead.
And well, here's the thing. Like, I say I don't like him, but I'm also very aware of the fact that is based solely on a dinner that I had with him 20 years ago. That was an awkward situation probably for everyone. So you remember, like, do you remember Melissa Burnley? Remember she booked
I remember Melissa Burnley, who did not work me a lot.
A lot of people had problems with her, and for whatever reason, she liked me.
I remember. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that created issues for me amongst people too, because they were like, "Oh, she's just booking you because she likes you." I'm like, "Yeah." But so Comedy Day used to be a big deal, right? And that was an event, a free event in the park, and the two different main clubs would compete with each other to make sure that there were big names on it. And one year, the Punchline had Mike Birbiglia in their set, and this had to be like 2003, 4, I don't know, somewhere around there, right? Maybe even earlier than that. And after Comedy Day, Melissa goes up to me and Mike Birbiglia and invites us to come to an Italian restaurant in the Mission with her afterward. And Of course I say yes. Of course he says yes. And then the entire time we're there, the vibe I'm getting from Mike Birbiglia, who never once looked at me, never made eye contact, never directly replied to anything I said, the whole vibe I got from him is, why is this lesser person here? And I mean, it was really awkward, and I don't remember Melissa and I talking about it afterward in any meaningful way, but I just remember thinking, like, so that's what it's like to be up close to someone who's made it, and they think other people who aren't of that caliber should even be in the conversation. Now, fast forward, he makes this movie in 2016, right, where he casts himself as an unlikable character who also is not being honest with himself about where his talent lies and stuff. So, having said everything that I've said about him, I liked the movie, even though my only experience with him was an unpleasant personal experience. But I'm wondering, Mike, if you're out there listening somewhere, I'm wondering, did he have some self-reflection in those years? Did he realize, like, hey, maybe I've been a jerk to people. Maybe I have come across as the big shot. Maybe I am... I don't know. I find that very curious, but I think it's interesting that he made himself, like, towards the end of the movie, if you remember, not to give anything away, but another person in the improv group says to him, hey, no one's going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you, like, you don't have it. You were never this close.
Right. I like that part.
That's a hard thing to hear, and it makes. And anytime I see anything like that, or I hear stories like that, I sometimes think to myself, like, is that me? You know, am I the guy who never really made it on the level that I wanted to make it because I don't have it, and I was never this close. You know, I don't know, but I also, you know, I can see, So Keegan Michael Key, is it Michael?
Yeah.
You know,
may I ask our producer. Hold on. Keegan Michael Key. Got it.
Okay. All right. Are you? Okay, you're right. That's great. We can pretend like we have producers. Yeah.
Wait. Actually, Key.
Yeah. Are you sure? Can you take another look in your clipboard there? Can you? Oh, yeah. They're looking right. That's not me. That's Hey, get that out of camera, man.
Get it out of Jesus.
Get out of camera. Jesus, these interns. But he did. So once he gets the role, you're right. He's under pressure. But I also think it was fascinating because I've heard these stories a lot from comics who have succeeded. That he basically stole a bit, you know, that had been improv one night and turned it into a sketch. And I'm sure you've heard the stories as I've heard the stories, you know, where somebody succeeds, they either get a writing gig or they get on a show somewhere, and suddenly a lot of your old bits are coming out of a sitcom star's mouth, or they're showing up in jokes on Weekend Update. You know, there's a lot of stories about that too. And then to justify it as like, hey, I'm under a tremendous amount of pressure. It's like, well, yeah, but if we're saying, can you help us get writing jobs? And you're saying, like, I can't do that, but then you're stealing stuff. That requires some self-reflection, too. Like, hey, what are you doing here?
Yes. Although I had compassion for him when he did that. I thought he was a sympathetic character. And I think there's also a part of me that says, if you're a really good friend, you just give him a break. If he doesn't have a history of stealing and he's under a lot of pressure, in the big picture, I want you to make it.
Yeah. I mean, that's very... Let me ask you something, though, in all honesty, right? Yeah. Like, that is a extremely generous, extremely compassionate attitude to have. Would you have had that 20 years ago when we were still in the trenches fighting for gigs and relevancy?
I don't know. But first of all, there's stealing, and then there's stealing. Okay, so if we're talking about stand-up, and you clearly take a signature bit of mine and do it on TV, there's no excuse for that. You have ripped me off. You've terrorized my life.
But if you're in an improv group and that's what you're known for, and then you take something that was improv one night and almost beat for beat turn it into a sketch. I mean, I feel like that's...
give him a break. He's
wow.
Yeah, well, because what else are you going to do with the idea?
Well, like...
what else is he going to...
Like the guy did. He shows up and confronts him. Like, hey, you stole this thing. And
I know, but stole it from where? You stole it from improv. So let him...
I mean, yes, but here's the thing. Improv still has to be created by people. They're authoring the event.
But then it
They're
comes
authoring
and it
the
goes.
moment.
It's not ethically, it's not perfect. But if my friend came to me and said, "Dude, I'm under a deadline. Can I fucking use this?" I'd say, "Yeah."
But he didn't. He didn't come to them first and say,
I know. I guess it's just kind of here's the point. If Keegan-Michael Key doesn't use it, then who's going to use it?
But it was already done, right? Like, it was done in a performance. And it was a performance authored by several people. Mm-hmm. And he's now saying, oh, I came up with it. I'm putting my name to it. Now I'm putting it on national TV.
He should have asked.
He should have asked.
But
I think he should have asked.
I think it takes a good friend, but a good friend should say, you're in the trenches, use it. And those are the people that actually make it. I'm not talking about Keegan-Michael Key. People that don't cling so hard. Down the line, someone with that kind of attitude is likely to get help.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing. Even in stand-up, right, we tend to, I think the outside perception is it's very much a solo endeavor. But the reality is, just emotionally, you have a support system of people around you. And then everyone is always like, hey, man, I thought of a tag for you. And, hey, what do you think about doing this? And, there is a community. But, yeah, I mean, it gets weird. I mean, I remember having just pangs of resentment when people were just, like, getting gigs before me. And I was just like, how the hell is that guy... you would be opening for some national headliner, and the headliner would like, hey, let's go on the road, and I would just feel like, fuck, how come I opened for that person? Why did not, there was always that kind of a feeling.
Like, can you remember who? And I'm not trying to name drop, I'm just trying to give a perspective.
I remember, I don't want to say anybody's name.
Okay, I'll give you here's an example, and this is because I'm not being negative.
No, I don't want any more coffee. God damn, fucking interns.
Fucking interns.
Okay, I'll thank you.
You get a successful podcast. It's not as easy as everyone thinks. And speaking of making it, let's take us for instance.
Let's take for us.
You got these interns.
We would like to make it.
These interns all want a piece of us.
All.
You know what I mean? They all.
You can't take it behind you. That was beautiful. Dan, you're incapable of lying. I love that. Even physically incapable of lying.
I've never been good at. It's called space work. I've never been a sketch guy. I can't make it believable. Okay. Let's take
give me an example of
and I'll contextualize it because no one knows who we're talking about or what we're. Gary Cannon, okay, funny guy, very funny guy, successful. in terms of he's got a career for himself. He's in LA, does a lot of warm-up work. He goes on the road with a lot of people. He is not a breakthrough. Gary, I have complete respect for you. Just to contextualize it for the listener, he's a very funny, very nice, great opener, right? And so I look at a guy like that and I go, no, he's not the second coming of Bill Hicks. And when I was at my best, I think I can keep up with him when I used to do this. We're both solid comedians. I look at him, I go, I get it. I get why someone would want you on the road with them. Mm-hmm. And it has to do with being really, really funny, not upstaging the guy, and really being cool, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, now, I think a lot of times
I want to work with someone, him.
Yeah, they want to pick someone they can hang out with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's how I look at it maybe differently than I used to. He deserves that. It's a game. It's just you bring your act and your personality.
Yeah.
And you bring it all to the table, and he deserves.
He's worked very, very hard.
Yeah.
To get that.
So there's an example.
I also realize like what he's doing and who he's doing it with. That's not something for me, you know? I think that's another thing I didn't realize early on either, is you would audition for something and you wouldn't get it and you'd feel bad, but the fact is, like, you know what? I wasn't the thing they were looking for. And that's okay, you know?
And I think
also
it's a lot of that. Knowing
there's so much of that. Yeah.
Now, there's a... Well, before we get into just talking about comedy, here is my favorite part of that movie.
Okay.
When Mike Birbiglia, and this is when it was very unlikable of this character, is pressuring Keegan-Michael Key to get me on the show. And this is, to me, this summed it up. He said, they love you and I taught you. So now they get to get me. This is good for them. That is the epitome of cluelessness, bitterness, and I think it transfers beyond show business. It reminds me of men who are saying, how can you break up with me, or how can you divorce me? Give me another chance. This isn't fair. Life isn't fair. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? It's not about fair. It's about the show doesn't want you, or this girl doesn't want you.
Yeah.
And you need to. The answers to these things are in self-reflection. You're not owed anything in life. Someone at the end of the day, someone will give you a writing job if they want to. And it really does come down to that.
Well, and also remember...
At the end of the day. Do you know what I mean?
It does. I mean, you know, there's got to be... There's a balance. And a lot of showbiz comes down to pushing. You know, when people use that expression, you got to get your foot in the door. Think about what that really means. Like, the door is closing and you jam your foot in there. You know, and you refuse to let them close the door. I mean, a lot of show business is about pushing your way in. And I think he was, you know, everyone in that troupe, right, was like, give my writing sample. He was under tremendous pressure. And if you remember, somebody in that group did get the writing job.
Right. On their own, though.
I think she was also part of the packet that was submitted.
Okay. But if I remember, they were also less pushy, and there's a genuine confidence, and I think a lot of people that have success are more confident than desperate and entitled.
Yeah, but I think a lot of times too, though, I see... I mean, now when we look back on it, right, a lot of people's confidence is unfounded. You know, they have confidence that, hey, this is really good. They have confidence that this is funny. They have confidence that they deserve this. And the fact is, objectively speaking, a lot of times it's not that good. It's
right.
You know, but because they kept pushing, you know, I mean, I also remember being down in LA, and I remember realizing, like, in a flash moment, I had a couple of flash moments down there where I realized the real talent in show business, right? When we boil it all down, it's not about being the most talented. It's really about being able to sell a product. And so much of how that sale begins is you're hanging out with a big name after a show, and they think you said something funny, and then they're like, hey, give me a call. And you slowly, you know, they're like giving you an opportunity, but at some point you always have to know when to apply pressure and when to pull back, when to apply pressure and when to pull back. And there are people that are very skilled at networking. That is the talent that is going to drive anybody far in showbiz. And that's not necessarily quality. That's not necessarily like, this is the funniest thing ever. It's like, hey, you know what? I like that guy that was hanging out smoking pot with us after the show the other night. Like, I can't tell you how many stories I heard about people getting writing gigs because they were smoking pot.
Because people like you.
People like you.
You and I, you know, I'm just going to make a generalization a little bit. I don't think you and I were ever great at that.
No, we were terrible at it. I mean, I felt like I was terrible at,
I wasn't good at that. I wasn't. Kevin Avery is a great guy. He's a writer. He writes for a lot of shows. Always takes my calls. Really nice guy. And I really appreciate that. No matter how successful he is, it's still him and I. And he's always been good at. He can go to the Improv and not worry that he doesn't have a set. Do you know what I mean? And not feel bad about himself. There's a skill to that, and ultimately it's on us to find the confidence to Al Madrigal. I totally understand his success. Makes total sense. He's confident. He knows what he's selling. And he knows how to kind of build relationships, hang out with people, and be cool, fun to be around.
Yeah, you gotta be. And I remember being in LA once it was a big Comedy Central thing, right? Like, I won a contest up here, and then there was like 10 cities, 10 comics from around the country that all won. You know,
that was a big deal at the time. What was that called again?
I can't remember what it was called, but you know, you got flown down to LA, and we were all gonna go up on one show, and the winner was gonna get a manager, a car, $10,000. You were gonna be on, I think, Premium Blend, which, like, at the time was Comedy Central's, you know, it show for comedians. You were gonna get all of these things, and it was just like oh crap, right? And we were performing on Sunset Boulevard at a place called the Key Club. I have no idea if any of that is still there, but, you know, just, you know, like, everything about it was big deal, big time, right? And I'm like, fuck, this, and I was so confident that I was going to have a great set. I was so confident that I was going to just go in there and wow them. I had one of the worst sets I ever had. And it was awful because like a minute and a half into my 6-minute set, I knew it was
over. Yeah.
It was over. I knew it was over. And I was fucked. And nothing and I had a great spot. I was like in the middle of the show. It was really it was mine to lose. And I felt crushed inside. And as soon as it was over, I wanted to leave. And Dan Gabriel is there hanging out, part of the community. And Dan says to me, like, where are you going?
Right.
And I'm like, I just want to get out of here. And he
Yeah.
goes, no, you got to go to work. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, we got to go to the bar and hang out.
Yeah.
And that was another like flash moment for me where I'm like, fuck, I don't like to hang out anyway.
No,
And
I'm with you. That's
yeah,
me too.
and
I'm out of here.
don't
I'm
wanna
a
hang
loser.
out.
I'm a loser.
Yeah.
I can't look anyone in the eye.
No.
I'm out of here.
And I remember like ducking in the bar out of
Uh-huh.
curiosity, and I could see like, you know, these agent people talking to other people on the show. And I remember going upstairs, and I can't remember who it was. It was like some guy from one of the better known agencies down there. He stops me in the stairs. He's coming up the stairs, or he's coming down to the bar. I'm going up, and he walks past me. Then he turns around and goes, "Hey," you know, and because I know who he is, and he just saw me, and I think he's going to say something like, "Hey, you know what? Stick with it, or let's talk sometime." And he just looks at me and he just goes, "Too smart for L.A." and turns around and leaves. Like that was his whole synopsis of my set. Like I was too smart for L.A. and I'm like, fuck. Like that was just another parting shot.
And not to be, because you and I think this is our cross to bear. And people have that kind of experience. You have a rough experience in LA. I've had them. My wife has had them. It's rough.
It's rough.
Because you kind of get, you have a little thing happen. You get, my wife got taken down to LA to audition for a Jamie Foxx sketch show because he liked her way back. And I think she said, I went there in a limo and left in a cab.
That's, yeah. Wow.
It's brutal.
That's LA, right? It's
but
brutal.
That's how it goes. Some people can lean into it and that night be at the Improv talking. People like you and I sulk out and then go back to San Francisco and talk about how brutal it is and fuck it and Johnny Steele.
Oh, totally.
Going to smell
never.
And you know what? That's a bunch of bullshit. It's, and I think again the theme I'm pulling into all of this is, I work as a therapist, and what I don't want my son to be someone that blames the world, blames other people, always talking about how it is. I know how this is because I spent one day there.
Right.
It's always better to self-reflect. There's always stuff to learn.
Self-reflecting is painful, though.
It's painful.
Painful.
But you sound like an asshole.
I didn't self-reflect on that experience.
Me neither.
Probably not until like 10 or 15 years later. And, you know,
you don't want to be just another asshole complaining about your life.
No, I don't want to. And you know what? The best advice I ever got about stand-up, and I don't know who told me this, but it ends up being very spiritual. Mm-hmm. And the advice was, if somebody gets something that you really wanted, you have to go up to them. You got to seek them out, go up to them, and congratulate them. But you got to mean it. And if you mean it, then you will not keep resentment in your heart. And I remember trying that. And when I did it, it was like magic. Like, fuck, I do not resent this person. I am genuinely happy for them. When I stopped doing it, it was like, oh my God, the resentment was eating me alive. And I honestly will say to people who have succeeded in LA, congratulations, because I know that was the little bit of experience I had with any time I went down to LA. Man, it was such a gut punch to me. And to be down there and to stick with it and to swallow the amount of rejection you have to swallow to build up that immunity, that takes a very strong person.
It does. And that's whether it's about funny or not. And something I've noticed on the just some people, it's always good to be cool and human to people. There are very funny, successful people that will always take a moment and look at you and remember who you are and be cool. And then there are some, And so, for instance, let's take someone we started with who is really, really successful and on television. I don't expect them, if we weren't great friends, I don't expect them to have time for me. For the most part, I get that. If I call you, you might not call me back. I can live with that. But if I run into you, you should take a moment, look me in the eye, and consider me a human being for 20 seconds. And sometimes that's not the case. And
I've had that experience too.
And that's disappointing. That's disappointing.
It's very disappointing. Yeah.
When we should never look at our fellow people and give off a vibe that says you're just less important than me now. And it happens. I have one guy that will remain nameless.
You're going to tell me after this, though, right?
You'll know.
Yes, prepare to write this down, intern. See how I do it, Dan? You can't tell it's my hand. Yeah, I can see.
Always with the water. Always with the water.
Why
with the
good. Yeah. Yeah, drink the water. Listen, right? No, I don't. Why would I want olive oil right now? Why is that even here? No, take it away. All right.
Take it away. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
Take a little out of petty cash. Give yourself the rest of the afternoon off.
Buy yourself. Do me a favor. Buy yourself some of those chocolates you like. If it'll get you off my. Fuck.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're sorry, people. This is what you got to deal with in success. Anyway, so someone we all know.
Someone.
You and I
look, okay, I'll give you an example. He RSVP'd to my wedding.
Oh, okay.
And did not show. So I bought you the chicken. You don't show. Then he didn't invite me to his wedding.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I have backstory around that too. Yeah.
I can't help but feel like he didn't because he didn't have to. Because who am I? There's a little of that. There are guys like Greg Proops, always nice. You know what I mean? I really appreciate. Always to me, always a nice guy. But, always will look you in the eye. He's just him.
He will, but there's also, how do I say this in a way? Like, Greg is somebody I have nothing but respect for, and I used to open for him a lot. He used to, that was very cool of him. He would come to town and he would talk to Molly and say, like, look, I want someone who's going to make me work. Like Jim Short would feature for him all the time. Mm-hmm. When Jim wasn't around, I'd feature for him all the time, right? And I felt like, wow, that not only is this guy just an amazing stand-up, he wants to be challenged. And whoever's really good in town, he's like, that's who I want in front of me. Mm-hmm. But I will say the thing about Greg, I met him twice down in LA, and one time it was just him and I was very thrilled that he accepted my lunch invitation. And really, it was like, I just moved down there, and I'm like, look, what advice can you give me? What can you, what to avoid, what to do? And he was very magnanimous. It was just really great to just sit there with him and pick his brain, and he did that. And then, like a couple months later, I go to see him at Largo, which is like, the uber hipster club, right? Cool and club. I go up to him, and he's talking to this very well-known character actor, and they both, quickly glanced at me, and then they looked at each other, and then they carried on the conversation. And it felt very much like, listen, there's a time and a place for the friendship that we have, and then you also have to respect that there's a pecking order. And I just remember standing there for an awkward amount of time before it really dawned on me, like, wow, okay, I'm not gonna be acknowledged, and that felt weird and uncomfortable. you know, and I also walked away from it thinking like, that's LA, you know, not writing it off and like that, this is fucking bullshit. But like that, I think is the experience a lot of people have in LA when you do think it's okay and appropriate and socializing to walk up to someone that you've worked with and spent hours with. Like, you know, I would hang out with him after shows and we would have these great conversations. And then suddenly, in that rarefied air of LA, and I doubt if he even remembers this, you know, it was just like, nope, I can't really acknowledge you right now, Joe, because I've got this person in front of me and this is where my attention needs to be. And I think a lot of that happens, and I don't think he's a bad guy, because I also think the other thing that I've learned is, like, no matter how far up the scale you think someone is in LA, they're terrified of losing whatever place they have.
So I would ask myself, am I capable of that? Maybe. So he might be talking to a guy, and he might have his attention, and you know, that's a moment it's going to benefit his career. And yeah, he might feel like, whoa, I got to stay in the zone here. In the big picture, he's not a huge star. He wants to make money, and he wants to. And that's another thing. These guys that we put on a pedestal, especially back in the day, from Greg Proops to Mark Maron to Dave Attell to when we started, they might have been pulling in $1,500 for a week at the Punchline. They had no following, and so it's a gray area. That sometimes I think there is a time. Sometimes there is a time and a place, and it can come off kind of exclusive and elitist.
That's what it felt like. It felt
like that.
It felt like, oh shit, this is, you know, I should know better. You know what I mean? And
it
maybe
feels
I
like
should
that.
have.
But think about this, okay?
Yeah.
Picture yourself at the Punchline back in the late 90s when we were desperate for the attention of, let's say, a Jeff Wills, right?
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Wills comes in and wants to talk to Joe Klosek. Hey, Joe, come here. Someone comes up. Are you going to keep you're going to stay locked in?
I hear what you're saying. I would say that's very apples and oranges, though, comparison-wise. Like, if I'm talking to the booker of the Punchline and I'm trying to get in there, and then some open mic comic comes up to me, you know, and it's like, okay, read the room. Let me have my
there you
moment.
go.
And maybe
Same
that's what was going on.
Maybe that was
going on. Like, wait, don't hand me my phone right now. I'm making a point. What? Oh, I'm getting, Dan, I'm sorry. I'm getting a call from someone.
Go ahead.
22% more important than you, based on the fame metric. And yes, I will accept that gig.
Go ahead. Okay. See, I'm cool about
it. I mean, sociologically, I don't know. I'm sure people have dissected the LA experience, you know, but yes, fame does change the dynamic of friendship, you know, and the one guy you're referring to, look, we were roommates, and I remember going to him at a certain point, and this was long before there was fame involved, right? I remember going to him and saying, hey, I miss you. I miss our friendship. I remember doing that, being very vulnerable about it, and, you know, him giving me a big hug, and but then nothing really changed, you know, and then, you know, the point was made, like, hey, he's moved on, and he's not interested in a close friendship anymore. And when other things started to happen for him, you know, where more fame was coming his way, I mean, the searing amount of resentment, I mean, I vividly can tell you, I was on the road doing, you know, B rooms and one-nighters in the Midwest, and this was like 2000, well, this was like Obama's first election, right? So like way back 2005 or something like that, right? And I remember staying at my sister Teresa's house in Illinois and seeing commercials for his show and just being consumed with resentment and self-loathing, like, what the fuck? Everyone thought I was going to be the star and he might be a writer, and now he's got his own show
and I'm not a writer.
And I'm doing shitty gigs in the Midwest that are just, I was depressed. I was frankly suicidal at the time. It was awful.
Right.
It was just an awful feeling. And I would ask myself, like, man, maybe if I made a bigger effort to stay his friend, maybe he would have brought me along. But then I look back and I'm just like, no, for whatever reason, he turned on me. And he turned on me long before there was fame, and he, was not interested in our friendship.
Yeah, and maybe another thing when I look at that relationship, when he was the opener and I was the feature, when I was ahead of him, I might have been more cocky than I thought. I might have treated him with a little of that arrogance. Possible.
I think about those days.
You know what I mean? And it's like I thought I was hot shit, and he was a little bit of a puppy around me. And I'm open to that. And I guess, again, things are going to change, but there's a certain amount of humanity that should always be there. And I'll bet you he's got his own. He's got his own version of it, and it's not invalid.
Oh, I'm sure. Look,
and his version is probably like, who?
Well, that's even worse.
His version is a lot simpler because he's got shit to do.
He's got shit to do.
He's got big money to make. I don't. But to sum this up, here's the.
Put the bow on it, Dan. Bring it home.
Is, it's always better to self-reflect than to blame women, blame showbiz, blame institutions in general. I truly believe I want my son to self-reflect, look at his role and stuff, and there's always room to grow. It sounds trite, or it's kind of a cliche, but I truly believe that.
Well, listen, you leftist socialist.
Think about I'm a socialist, so what? It's easy. Think about the example you're setting for your kids. Do you walk around saying stuff like, "Here's the thing about fill in the blank. They're all incompetent over there." When you're talking about your old job or your old this, is that the example you want to set? There's always room, even when we're talking about the guy that's president, whose name I don't like to say. My son, who will sometimes make comments about, well, he's an idiot and people that vote for him are idiots. I say, that's not useful. Look underneath at people, because it is not useful to just call I'm smart, they're stupid.
You know what? In this particular case, I might be with your son on this.
That's why I don't want you guys hanging out.
Yeah, because true. We'll talk Star Wars. We'll agree with each other.
I get it, but we can always try to do better than that. We can always try to.
I like that. We can always try to do better. What's my part in it? Let me look at what my role is. Let me self-reflect and be honest about what I brought into this. What can I get out of it? Right. Okay. Well, boom.
Okay, people.
There we go.
Is that so bad that we don't deserve a good comment? Is that so bad? Is that so socialist or so leftist or so?
Oh man,
girly.
I can't wait to
read
the. Yeah, bring it.